Oh, and there's Congressman Robert Garcia now. He's the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman Garcia, I've got Ryan Lizza with me, independent journalist. He's been working on all of this as well. And I'm hearing from your staff, you've got a heart out. I'm sure you're a busy man doing lots of interviews, but tell us your initial reaction to these emails, particularly that one we were showing our viewers a little while ago from April of 2011, this exchange between Epstein and Maxwell, where it says, victim spent hours at my house with him, referring to Trump, the dog that hasn't barked. Your thoughts, sir?
I mean, really disturbing stuff, obviously. Look, I think these are really serious. It, again, for us, really gives us a lot more to work on. And honestly, we have a lot more questions and important questions that the White House refuses to answer. I think it's clear that Donald Trump, up to this point, has been untruthful in what actually has happened, what he knows, what he may have participated in. You know, he said the birthday note didn't exist. It exists. He said he didn't know Jeffrey Epstein very well. We know that's not true. Epstein said they were close friends. And this email that essentially says that Donald Trump may have spent hours with the victim, the other email from Epstein that said that Trump had some knowledge, allegedly right about these girls, I think really raise serious questions. And the White House could fix all of this and end this today if they just released all the files, but they're refusing to do so. I mean, we just saw that Carolyn Levitt just recently put out this long statement about, upset that we are somehow, releasing some of these documents. Well, they can. Her boss today can release all the files and get all of these questions answered and put this whole thing to rest. But it's a White House cover-up, and it's serious. And the American public should know that Donald Trump has betrayed the public by saying he was going to release them, and now he's not.
Right, and I guess the other aspect in all of this, Congressman, is, I mean, this is a redacted name that's in there that says that this is a victim who spent hours with Trump at Epstein's house. Congressman, that seems to indicate something very serious, very, very serious. And I think you're absolutely right. It underlines the urgency for releasing these files. And if the White House wants to take issue with this, if Trump wants to take issue with this, then release the files. Let us. But one of my main takeaways from this, Congressman, is that it appears he is all over these files. Donald Trump is.
We think that's right, and obviously we don't know. We haven't seen the files. What we're getting are direct emails and correspondence from the Epstein estate, from other sources. Look, we've had to fight to get all this released. It has not been because Republicans have somehow decided to make these releases public. The subpoenas are only in place because oversight Democrats had to fight like hell to push Republicans to get this done. We had to call for the Epstein estate and get a subpoena so that we're able to get these actual documents. Yeah. We would know little to nothing if it was left to Republicans. And so I believe that Mike Johnson is now complicit in this cover-up. He obviously has stalled in trying to get Adelita Grijalva sat there right now, trying to, I'm sure, do everything they can to kind of take off and encourage Republicans to come off that petition. But the truth is going to come out. And let me tell you why. Because there's enough good men and women in the FBI and other agencies that have actually worked on this case, that have put these documents together, that have spent hours being led by a sense of justice and trying to get justice for these survivors who were trafficked in many cases as children and they were underage. And so this is going to come out, and we're not going to stop until we get this justice for the Epstein survivors and victims.
Yeah, and Congressman, this also, and I'll let Katie ask a question in a second, but because she comes from a legal standpoint, which is terrific, but it also really calls into question what Ghislaine Maxwell reportedly said to Todd Blanche during this cockamamie meeting that they had before she was transferred to a minimum security prison, where she swore up and down that Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. In the April 2011 email, Epstein allegedly says that Trump is the dog that hasn't barked, and that he spent hours at my house with a redacted name victim. And then she replies, "I have been thinking about that." So it seems to me she has information.
I think that's absolutely right. And that's why we want her to come testify in front of the Oversight Committee. And look, we know she wants a pardon. She wants a commutation. The DOJ is secretly talking to her, apparently, about who knows what. What I think the American public right now understand is that Donald Trump and the White House are covering up some apparently massive information that would implicate, I think, a lot of powerful men in this country, maybe around the world. We know that in the initial filing from the lead prosecutor in the Acosta investigation that happened in Florida, we know that the lead prosecutor had information that would essentially there would be at least 20 other men that could have had and really faced serious consequences had Acosta allowed that prosecution in that case to move forward as it should have.
This is Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney.
Alex Acosta was the U.S. attorney in Florida.
No relation.
So all of this really raises serious questions.
And Katie, you were going to ask a question.
Yeah, Congressman Garcia, it's always so good to see you. I did want to talk about the congressional subpoenas because I did give props to you guys because the Epstein estate is the only entity that is currently complying with the lawful requirements of that congressional subpoena. We are getting the tranches into House oversight, but I wanted to kind of get people up to speed on what the hell is happening to that congressional subpoena that was served on the Department of Justice, putting aside Adelita Grijalva getting sworn in as she should have been more than 2 months ago and getting that discharge petition done and, you know, the full vote being set up. That was still a lawful subpoena from House Oversight that theoretically was supposed to be bipartisan with Comer, you know, signing on to it and sending it over. Has anything else come from DOJ?
It has not. And that is what's really, I think for us, it's unacceptable. And that's why we're saying this is a cover up. We have a subpoena in place. They sent us that first batch of documents, 97% of which were already public documents.
Yeah.
We know they have an enormous amount of materials, emails, photos, possibly videos in their possession. It's time for them to comply with the subpoena. And we're getting no support from the House Oversight Republicans. They should be calling on the Department of Justice to do the same. But they're not interested, apparently, in the truth. What we're focused on is the survivors and the truth. And we're not going to stop till we get it.
And Ryan, did you have a thought? Because Ryan and I were talking earlier about the Michael Wolff angle and all of this.
I wonder, Congressman, it's good to see you. And you know, I have to point out, Congressman, I know some of your staff, and you really have some of the best people in the House. So it's a real testament to you that you attract such gifted staffers up there on the Hill. Can you take us through and give us any of the highlights as you see it of the 16 pages that were just released before you came on? We're just seeing them for the first time, little tough to decipher, but anything that you think we should pay close attention to or that stood out to you?
Well, I think there's obviously some communication there between Steve Bannon. And I think that is really important. I think there's, we just released some additional documents there that show some of those appear to be messaging, text messaging that is in place there. We also, I think, released some other additional emails. But remember, there's 23,000 pages. And so our intention is to release all of it. And I think the bigger question as it relates to the release that just came out, more documents that will come out later, we think today, and what we released this morning, is they all point back in many ways to Donald Trump or his associates having relationships or being involved or asking questions or what the president may have known or not known at the time. Of course, he had not been elected yet. Ghislaine Maxwell is clearly very involved in these communications. And we get to really see Michael Wolff engaging directly with Jeffrey Epstein about Trump and what he may have known and his time spent with victims and survivors. And so there is a lot there. Obviously, a lot has had to have been redacted, which I know is hard for some. We're trying to protect the victims and survivors. But people should read all these documents for themselves and make those judgments. We think it's very interesting.
And you need to talk to Michael Wolff, I assume, too. I have to let you go, but
yeah, we've been talking to everyone, I think.
Got it. Congressman Robert Garcia, thank you so much for your time. I know your time is limited, but appreciate you stopping by. Best of luck with the investigation. It seems to me there's more to come.
Thanks so much. There is.
Joining me now to talk about this, Congressman Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California. Congressman, I mean, let's just jump right into this. You're heading back to the Capitol now as we speak.
Just landed. Yeah, I was in California this morning, just landed, and no surprise here, right? I mean, it was always about Epstein. That's why the government was shut down. That's why people were not paid for 40 plus days. That's why our economy came to a screeching halt. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, and that was something that you heard from the White House and the Republicans, that it was Democrats who shut down the government, even though you're not in the majority really anywhere in Washington. You hope to be in after 2026. But I know you've made this case on several occasions that you believe Mike Johnson was very instrumental in this, and that Congress was shut down, the House in particular was shut down to avoid releasing the Epstein files.
So it was an Epstein shutdown, because I've been in shutdowns before, and whether it was a Republican speaker or a Democratic speaker, one thing was always true. Congress was in session every day of the shutdown to try and force a deal, because when you're in the press and you're around your colleagues and you're working and you're interacting with them and you're held accountable by the press who are asking, like, what's the deal going to be? That forces a deal, and you know what the stakes are of the people who are suffering. Here, unlike any other shutdown in the past, Johnson just went on vacation. For 50 plus days, Congress was not in session. And the only logical conclusion, Jim, was that if we were in session, he would be forced to swear in Adelita Grijalva, who would be the 218th vote to force a vote on the Epstein files. And everything I've heard from my Republican colleagues is that to protect them from taking that vote. But if that vote is public, they absolutely are going to vote to release the files. So she's going to be sworn in today. That vote's going to be public imminently. And my prediction is that almost every single Republican is going to vote to release it, especially in light of what we just learned today.
Yeah, and they're freaking out over at the White House. Trump put out a Truth Social post that was basically warning Republicans, don't defect, don't be part of this attempt to distract from the public. It says there should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else, and any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. I mean, with an exclamation point. I'm surprised.
To my Republican colleagues, I would just say, you do not have to be an accomplice to child sex trafficking. Like, you may have signed up for a lot, with how far you're going to go with Donald Trump, but you don't have to protect Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. And I mean, some of these revelations are just, they're just damning. And Donald Trump is all over these emails. There are text messages between, we were showing this earlier this morning, apparently between Epstein and Steve Bannon. Some of these were going on in 2019. The email, though, the original email that I wrote, or that I read at the beginning of this, goes all the way back to 2011, April of 2011, before Trump was a candidate for president, before he was really involved in politics that much. I guess he was spreading the birther conspiracy maybe back then, that sort of thing. But Epstein and Maxwell are talking about this, and she says, I've been thinking about that, the fact that Trump is not the dog, he's the dog that hasn't barked yet.
And we always knew, Jim, that they were connected, that they were friends. It felt like there were more photos of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump and anyone in his family. And it now makes a lot of sense as to why Mike Johnson and everyone else who has access to the files, like Kash Patel, worked so hard to take the shovels out and bury this evidence so far beneath the earth, because it was not going to look good when we learned how closely they are connected. And by the way, this is a movement of his own doing. Like, he is the one who, for many years, almost a decade, promised that he ran on, described if this was like baked cake files are the flag. Like, it's an ingredient of the movement. Coming home to roost, because his supporters were promised that they would learn who are in those files, and we're learning that Donald Trump is closer than any of us even had imagined.
Right. And apparently there's this, and for folks who are just tuning, we came on a little early because Congressman Swalwell was available. Apparently there's an effort going on to try to convince some of these Republicans in the House, people like Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, to see if they'll switch their votes. Apparently Nancy Mace has come out and said that that's not going to happen. But Lauren Boebert, the White House, I believe, did confirm that they have been putting pressure on Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, she's the most likely. Frankly, I know all of these characters. She's the most likely to flip. She's the weakest, the least mature, the most susceptible to pressure from the White House. But look, it's all coming out, Jim. Like that.
Yeah.
That's what we're learning here. It's all coming out. We can either do it, through a congressional subpoena, or the Epstein estate will continue to provide it, or we can be in the majority in a year and it'll come out. But also, just so your viewers know, in about a month, we are going to swear in another Democratic member of Congress who is going to fill the Sylvester Turner seat from Houston. So we're going to have that 218th vote. And so it's better, for the sake of transparency and just owning up to it for the American people, to do it now rather than to try and, again, keep this buried.
Yeah, and I mean, the effort to keep Adelita Grijalva out of the House of Representatives, I mean, it's what, 6
Never
weeks
seen anything like
already?
that before. Yeah, never seen anything like that before.
like that. She gets elected in a special election, and they just flat out don't swear her
Right.
in. And apparently, I heard from one of the Epstein survivors today that some of them are going down there to attend her swearing in. This is going to be a big moment.
I'll be there shortly. It's going to
Yeah.
happen imminently. I'm going to head into my office, change, and head over to the floor. But it's a long time coming. Frankly, I've told our leadership that every day that Johnson refused to swear in Adelita is a day that we should add up and refuse to swear in Johnson when we're in the majority. Like there has to be consequences for what he did here, and they should not think it's so easy to do this. And I also fear, if I'm being completely honest, that this is a little bit of a dry run for not accepting the results of the 2026 midterm election. And they were essentially trying to see what was the pain tolerance of our caucus and the country to not swear in a legitimately elected member of Congress.
Congressman Eric Swalwell, it looks like you've arrived at the Capitol.
I'm at the
We have
Capitol.
photo
Yeah.
live in the car, sort of.
There you
pointing
go.
on all the, there it is. We'll let you get to work. I know exactly where you're parked right now. It looks like you're in between Cannon and one of the other
That's
buildings,
exactly
or
right.
Longworth
Yeah.
or something like that. Great
You
to
still
see
got
you.
it.
I still got it. Still, I kind of have it, but I know you still got it. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right,
Jim.
take
Yeah.
care. Congressman Eric Swalwell of California. And, there was I'm going to have Stu Stevens coming up in just a few moments with the Lincoln Project, Lincoln Square, former Republican strategist, author of some great books on this current moment that we're in right now. And we're going to get Stu's, takes on all of this in just a few moments. But we have to point out, and I get a chance to talk about this with Congressman Swalwell because he was running over to Adelita Grijalva's swearing in. That's going to be happening any moment now. She is the Arizona Congresswoman-elect who was voted in by her constituents in that district 6 or 7 weeks ago. And House Speaker Mike Johnson refused to swear her in because he knew that she was going to be the decisive vote, the 218th decisive vote to go on this discharge petition, a legislative maneuver to force the release of the Epstein files. Now, of course, if and when that happens, the question will become, does the Justice Department turn it over? Again, Donald Trump does not listen to, if one branch of government says they have to do something, he does not listen, and they don't listen. So that's one piece of the drama that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. But another piece of the drama played out in the White House briefing room earlier today, where the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, you almost feel sorry. I did not feel sorry for her. I'm just going to state from the very beginning, I did not feel sorry for her, but you almost do, because she had to go in there and take some questions. And she barely took any questions from legitimate news outlets. She took questions from the ringers, the sycophants, the apologists that they've stocked the White House briefing room with these days. But she was asked about some of these emails, and let's play a little bit of what she said.
Emails that have been released by House Democrats, separate from why you believe the emails were made public, can you address their substance? Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. Sure.
So there you go. That's been the White House line for some time now. For folks who follow this very closely, you will know that is what aide after aide, a spokesperson after spokesperson for Donald Trump has said repeatedly, that this is why Donald Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club. Now, there's some question as to whether or not Epstein was in fact a member of the club. There were some other documents and emails that we were looking at earlier today, where it was indicated Jeffrey Epstein was saying that he was not a member. So there's a lot to sift through. I was talking with Congressman Robert Garcia earlier today. He is the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. And he was saying this is why we need Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime confidant of Jeffrey Epstein. She's now currently in a minimum security prison in Texas. She got that little housing situation from the Trump administration after she told Todd Blanche, top official of the Justice Department, exactly what he and Donald Trump wanted to hear. She basically said, "Oh, Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong. Can I get out now, please?" was essentially the gist of her comments. And now, of course, we have these emails. Here's the one from April 2nd of 2011. Very important email. "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, redacted name, spent hours at my home with him, at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there." And then she says, "I have been thinking about that." Now, what you just heard Caroline Levitt say a few moments ago was that the email actually exonerates Donald Trump, which it does not do that. It absolutely does not do that. And this is the jam that they're in right now. The jam that they're in right now is that they need you, the American people around the world who are watching, to not believe your eyes and ears, to not believe what you're reading in an email that goes all the way back to 2011. This is before Donald Trump really got involved in national politics. He was somebody who just yapped on TV from time to time. That's true. He was not a candidate until 2015. And there are emails from that time period as well. There was an email from December of 2015 between the author, Michael Wolff, and Jeffrey Epstein, allegedly, in which it is claimed, and there it is right there. There's the Michael Wolff email, December 15th, 2015. Now, this is 5-6 months after Trump has announced he's running for president. "I hear CNN planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on the air or in a scrum afterwards." And then Jeffrey Epstein, if you didn't watch our coverage earlier today, I'll go over a lot of this again. jeevacation@gmail.com. If that's not a disgusting email address, I don't know what is. And Epstein responds to Michael Wolff, "If we were to craft an answer for him, what would it be?" And Michael Wolff goes on to say in that email, "I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of in a Trump regime." But what's important about all of this is that Michael Wolff appears to be, and I'm just going to say it, Michael Wolff might disagree with this characterization. He's welcome to come on if he wants to. Michael Wolff is basically coaching Jeffrey Epstein on how to handle all this. Let's bring in our friend Stuart Stevens from the Lincoln Project, Lincoln Square, author of some great books on this current crisis that we're in. Stu, good to see you again.
Good to
Man,
see
what
you.
a day.
I just want to take this opportunity to remind you that my old party is the Family Values Party. So just don't ever.
Man,
and where
was
as Peggy Noonan famously wrote about Ronald Reagan, character is king. So we haven't drifted away from that at all. It's still right there, a centerpiece to everything that Republicans believe.
No kings though, no kings.
Well, what's a little pedophilia between friends?
Man, oh man. But and I mean these emails. You've been in politics a long time. You've covered a lot of this as an observer and a writer and so on. This is some wild shit.
This is some wild shit. Yeah. Look, the thing that I go back to about Trump that is the most depressing is we knew so much before we elected him the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
And we certainly knew a lot before we elected him the second time. And, I really blame the Republican Party for this because, parties in our system have to be a circuit breaker. And this party should have come forward and said, no, we're not doing this. If it means we lose an election, we lose an election. There's something more important than that. And I don't listen to the Senate. Listen to these members of Congress. How many senators are going to say, Republican senators are going to say anything about this?
Yeah. That's a good point.
I think very few. How many Republican governors out there are going to say this is outrageous?
Yeah, it's like the sign on the factory wall: days without an accident, days without a comment from a Republican criticizing Trump.
It's really extraordinary. And I think it's just a collapse of a party unlike anything that we've seen. I mean, certainly in modern history. I'm not sure going back when there's been as much.
And the part of it is, Stu, is we're watching this in real time, so we don't know where this is going.
Yeah.
I had Robert Garcia on earlier today. He's the ranking Democrat, very aggressive on the House Oversight Committee. He said there's more coming. There's more coming.
Well, look. I mean,
yeah.
At a certain point, you have to say, just give me a break. What do we know about Donald Trump?
Yeah.
This is a guy talked in public repeatedly about dating his own daughter.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is a guy who, has pictures of himself with models everywhere, a guy who, I mean, the following is a true statement. Donald Trump had sex with a porn star 4 months after his youngest son was born, to his third wife, who he met while married to his second wife. And while they were still married to his second wife, talked to the New York Post about how great sex was. And this was after his first wife. He had an affair with his second wife. Yeah. So, I mean, that's who Donald Trump is. And the guy that, had Miss Teen Universe contest, I mean, the guy is a total sleazebag.
Yeah. And you would think that, I mean, the Republicans, they go along with Access Hollywood. He gets in office. I mean, and some of these emails, by the way, that were reported on today occurred in 2019. So, I mean, this is, some of these emails are when Trump is a candidate in 2015, when he's president in 2029. I mean, some of this stuff, the timeline is wild, but every step of the way, you're absolutely right, Stu. Republican leaders have stomached this, have gone along with this. Here are some texts between Epstein and Bannon, allegedly. In 2019, this is months before Epstein allegedly committed suicide. And Bannon says to Epstein, can't believe nobody is making you the connective tissue between himself and Donald Trump. And they've just gone along with it every step of the way. Mike Johnson, keeping the house shut down.
If we put a picture of Steve Bannon up there and you would say, this guy was texting with Jeffrey Epstein, you wouldn't say, no, he doesn't look the part at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Weird. These are just horrible people. The stuff that we used to say in the party that go back to when Clinton and the Monica Lewinsky thing, when William Bennett was writing the Book of Virtue, when there was this sort of universal outcry that the reason this is important is because the White House, the Oval Office, is more than an executive position. It is the heart and soul of the country, and it embodies something. And I can tell you, Jim, all the ads that we made in the Bush 2000 campaign, all those ads we made, the ones pretty much only that worked were the ones where George Bush was saying he would restore honor and dignity to the White House.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with people. And that's ultimately why Al Gore lost.
I remember when Bush called Clinton the shadow. Didn't he call him the shadow?
Yeah.
The shadow hanging over. And then you worked for somebody who I think is one of the most decent human beings I've ever covered in politics, Mitt Romney. And, there's a tragedy here. There's a through line that's a tragedy through all of this.
There's no place for a Romney in the party. There's no place for a Cheney in the party. I think it's a fascinating story that once you accept the unacceptable, it's just a slippery slope down. From going from the outrage of Access Hollywood to supporting him, which people did within days, if they spoke out. That is a barrier, an exit ramp, and gateway drug to saying Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Because, once you're willing to say things and embody things are not true, are in some way evil, then what's another? You just keep saying it. And you know what? I think one great truth that Donald Trump realized about the Republican Party is that if he would give them power, everything that they believed they would go against, everything they said they believed, that was the deal. The ultimate Faustian bargain.
Yeah.
And he was right. And I think that's why he ran as a Republican, not as a Democrat. I mean, he'd been a lifelong Democrat. And he realized in the Democratic Party, they wouldn't accept this. But I could do this in the Republican Party. And, if you go back to 2016, Donald Trump has always benefited from the inability to imagine Donald Trump. All of those candidates, I mean, you covered this brilliantly.
Yeah.
Were up there, those 15 other candidates, beating the crap out of each other because all you wanted to do was get to be one-on-one with Donald Trump, because the party was not going to vote for a guy that talked about dating his daughter. Don't be ridiculous. A bankrupt casino guy,
And then Trump just completely said, I'm not even going to participate in the debates in the 2024 campaign. And the party let him off the hook on that.
Yeah.
Every step of the way.
Yeah.
Every step of the way.
The reason I wrote this book called It Was All a Lie,
Great book.
There was a group in my world, of Bush world, when Trump first emerged and won, that they wanted to say that Trump hijacked the party. I never got this because, the hijacker is not popular on the plane.
Right.
Nobody goes like, hey, we're not going to go to grandma's. We're going to Cuba. Fantastic. Great beaches. Can't wait. And Donald Trump was wildly popular. And there's nothing today that stops any of these people from going in front of a microphone and saying, no, enough. This is it.
Yeah.
And, apparently you have a situation where the Vice President of the United States, just think about this, is sitting around in his office, 2,900 pages of just the most awful, horrible, ugly, anti-Semitic, racist chats between, human beings in their 20s and 30s, right? These, old enough to be elected to the Senate. I mean, these are not children. These are not just a bunch of kids. This isn't a dorm room discussion, while everybody's drunk or stoned. These are adults, some office holders. And so, but what's fascinating about this, not that happened, but that J.D. Vance was sitting around his office and said, somebody's got to stand up for Nazis. And I'm going to go be the guy.
It's incredible. And you got the Heritage Foundation sticking up for Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson, a 9/11 truther, a Russian shill. And so why does J.D. Vance do that? J.D. Vance is nothing if not a crafty opportunist who is willing to remake himself as whatever he needs to be at that moment he thinks to advance himself. When it was convenient to be, this self-invented Appalachian hillbilly, fine, I'll be that. Better to be a global tech advisor with Peter Thiel. Fine, I'll be that. I'll live in San Francisco. I'll be that. Now he's this, moves back to Ohio. Says, I'm going to be this. The reason he did it is because he felt, without some, good cause, that he could advance himself in the party by defending Nazis. That the litmus test in the party had become who can be more transgressive. Yeah. I'm going to say more and more nasty stuff. And no enemies to my right. And I'm not going to have any sense of shame. I'm not going to have any sense of decency, any sense of what this says about me. And this is how you. And is anybody in the Republican Party going to really speak out about this? And I really wonder.
And that leads me to this question, which is there an exit ramp for the Republican Party, or is this now Thelma and Louise time?
It's Thelma going off. Yeah, they're going off. Thelma and Louise time. I mean, look, there are thousands of hours of video and thousands of photographs that the FBI seized with Epstein. And I do think there's some possibility that if one of those was so undeniable and so grotesque, and I'm sure they existed at one point, then that might be enough. But short of that, no, this is what the party wants to be. The party never cared about family values.
Well, yeah. And that's what you've written brilliantly about in your book. It was all a lie. It was that in particular was one of the biggest lies at the foundation of it all being a lie. And, the question that comes to my mind is, there, and this as a strategist, campaign strategist, when you don't have control of the information, when you don't have a lid on what could come out. When I was talking to Robert Garcia earlier today, he was saying there's more coming out, that they had to go to the Epstein estate to get this stuff, the stuff that was brought out today. And so there are other avenues for investigators to retrieve and obtain information other than going through Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the corrupt people over at the FBI and the Justice Department, which is a terrible place to be if you're the White House, if you're somebody who's hogtied himself to Donald Trump. It's a terrible place to be.
Yeah. And, can we just pause for a minute and think about this? The president's personal criminal attorney, just the president of the United States has a personal criminal attorney who think about that,
Yeah.
And
Todd Blanche, we're talking about Todd Blanche,
who lost 30, Todd Blanche, who lost 34, a case in which his client was convicted of 34 felonies, counts of felonies. Gets on a plane, flies, and meets with the most notorious pedophile alive today, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
And when you read that transcript, it is just sickening the way that he is. I don't understand. It's like so clearly coaxing a witness,
not leading the witness, romancing the witness.
Yes. And what happens? She gets to move to a club fet where she can take yoga lessons and have a dog. So this is the part. The party is and she's clearly negotiating for a pardon.
Right.
And she clearly knows stuff that is negotiating for pardon. And what was Donald Trump's reaction when she was arrested? On the record, at the podium, in the White House, I wish her well.
I wish her well.
I mean, it is one of these moments that we've known over and over and over again, where you look at it and you go, why didn't this end it? Why didn't it end it when he mocked a disabled reporter? Why when he said that John McCain wasn't a hero? Why when all of this stuff?
The insurrection. Yeah.
And then the most egregious is the insurrection. And this is what you end up with. And it is but people forget, about Mephistopheles. It not only takes your soul, he doesn't deliver. And that, I think, is what, you began to see last Tuesday, where Trump can't save these people. And he's pushed the party to a point where who is in politics, it takes a message and a messenger. What is the message they have that is appealing? And who is the messenger?
Yeah.
I mean, they did have immigration, but they've just taken it to this point with this sort of comic book ghoul of Stephen Miller, where, I really don't think you could go to the reddest county and at the Kiwanis Club, they would feel good about watching video of mothers being dragged from their cars and children being zip tied.
That's right.
By masked men.
Yeah.
And
I think that's right.
They're underwater on immigration. And look,
and how is that video going to feel 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if Trump blows himself up, as we now see it potentially happening, maybe sooner rather than later? And they look at this video of all of these horrendous things that he talked the party into doing, like, pepper spraying babies in the face, like that happened the other day, and driving off with the kid in the car, that happened the other day. How is all that going to feel? How's that all going to go down?
This has been one of my great the questions I've asked, because, I know I helped elect so many of these people. Getting elected to the U.S. Senate is a real pain in the ass. You have to go through a lot of degrading stuff, meet a lot of people you really rather not meet. You have to beg for money. Okay, finally you get elected. And you're there so you can do whatever Donald Trump tells you? Really? That would make it all worthwhile. And most of these politicians, they have
Yeah, being a senator is supposed to be cool. You're not supposed. It
yeah,
means you're
I
kind
mean,
of above that. Yeah, yeah,
what's the reward here?
yeah.
And most politicians have really big egos, which is great. I mean, so do God knows writers do, so do athletes, artists. We haven't shot anybody all day for that. But
Yeah.
to go to the point you said, why is it that their ego checks in? How is this going to be seen? And it's not just Epstein. It's all of this. It's the denial of the election. It's the horrible ICE mass thugs out there. How is this going to be not 10 years from now? But how is it going to look? And what I've said to the few people that'll still talk to me, an ever decreasing number, is this is segregation. And nobody remembers Mississippi Senator Jim Eastland, my former senator, for the roads that he built or that bridge. They remember him because he was a segregationist.
Yeah.
And
right.
They are going to be Trumpist, and that's what they're going to be remembered for.
And we should note, just the last few minutes, Adelita Grijalva, she has been sworn in as a member of Congress. She's now a member of Congress. They finally
shocking. She won.
Yeah, 6 or 7 weeks ago. I know it almost seems like we're reporting on like a former Soviet Union bloc country.
Exactly. I mean, it's like this is a news item.
Yeah, it's like, wow, democracy has come back to America.
Someone who got elected got to be sworn in. Wow, I didn't know that shit still happened.
Yeah, God, you're right. It does sound bizarre world.
It goes to the normalization here that we slowly began to accept. Joyce Vance just published a brilliant book where she talks about this. How the decline of democracy becomes normalized in these small steps. And I think about my dad. He was an FBI agent. The idea that he would go out of the house and put on a mask and run around and zip tie children, and to have a boss like Kash Patel. I mean, Kash Patel. And Kash Patel, we even forgot about Don Bongino because Kash Patel is so bad.
Yeah.
Don Bongino, I don't understand how the guy gets through TSA. Why doesn't set off all the alarms? Like, what a weirdo. Wait a second. Come into this room and let's have a conversation.
Well, but I've talked about this before. The reason why Trump has these people there who don't belong there is because they'll do his bidding. And he needs those. They're so damaged goods. They can't get these kinds of gigs and in any other way unless they go work for him. And when they get there, he's got them.
It's a greatly, you had to be inside the party. But all these people around Trump, it's not like they woke up in 2015 and said, it'd be interesting to get involved in presidential politics. They all wanted to before. We just wouldn't let them in. I mean, Kellyanne Conway, really? Really? No, I don't think so.
Corey Lewandowski.
I asked Mitt, I talked to Mitt once, a few years ago. He said, well, I know Corey. I go, what? How do you know him? And he goes, well, he was a part-time Marine officer in New Hampshire, and he had to inspect my boat. I said, well, what did you think? And he goes, well, he passed my boat.
Oh, man.
That's Corey Lewandowski, who was famous in political circles when he was a staffer at the New Hampshire Republican Party. He had the brilliant idea of debating a cutout of a Democratic gubernatorial candidate, and the consensus was to cut out one.
Oh,
and Steve Bannon. I mean, that guy
wears those 3 shirts with the 3 pens.
He wanted to be involved in the making of films that we did for the Bush campaign. And all of these people, Gorka, they're just, they're just freaks. And he let them in, and they know that they can't have any other like position. It's a mobster management theory.
Yeah.
That, get in my mob and, you'll get what falls off the truck. And otherwise, you'd either be in jail or you'd be working some minimum wage job.
Yeah. And I think, getting back to the here and now, the next 48, 72 hours are going to be so interesting. Does a Republican go by the wayside and doesn't go along with this discharge petition? What is this process going to look like? If it does pass, does the White House say, we're not going to give you that shit anyway? Well, this if it starts to feel a little Nixon end of days.
Very much so. Yeah. If I was uh, advising Democratic elected officials. I would say I would load up a plane and I would fly to Louisiana and I would stand in front of Mike Johnson's church and demand that he help reveal who the greatest pedophile scandal of our time. I mean, this is someone, his wife works for this church, has a business there. This is someone who's, confront it, make them see it, make them eat it. Because there's not really anybody going to that church that wants to protect pedophiles, except for Mike Johnson. And
unreal,
stick it, make them eat it. And it's,
there's really no other choice at this point but to rub their noses in it.
Rub their nose on. This is who you are.
Yeah.
And if you accept it, you're not. I think it would be effective. Yeah. Because I still think that there's an element of peer pressure. There was that case where the head of ICE, Tom Holman, in the small town he lives in upstate New York, ICE went in, grabbed a guy who was a much loved member of the community, and his neighbors, and this it's a small town, were outraged by it, and this guy was released. He has to live in that town or wants to live in that town. That's where he grew up. And I think these things matter, and you have to really personalize this stuff because these aren't big policy questions. This isn't like, should capital gains be 32% or 28%?
Or 50-year mortgages? Yeah.
50. These are fundamental issues of right and wrong. I just...
It's about what Joe Biden used to talk about, the soul of America.
Yeah, it is the soul of America. And the idea that this, it's what, the Guthrie family saying, this isn't a political issue. This isn't about one party or a partisan issue. Right. How could it be a partisan issue? And I don't know, I mean, I've known John Thune since he was executive director of the Republican Party in South Dakota. Great guy. He wouldn't have let Jeffrey Epstein in his house,
Right.
And yet he's going along with this. Really? So I think it's a moral parable. And there is a great lesson for us. And that is, once that you begin to accept the unacceptable, where do you stop?
Yeah, that's right. And when you mentioned John Thune, it makes me think of Howard Baker, who famously, he was the one who went to Nixon and said, it's over. It's done.
Lost it.
It's
you go back and you look at that, and you look at those hearings, which I actually did the other day. It's like artifacts from a lost civilization. It's like watching the Mayans or something, like go through rituals. Like there really were people like this in both parties that would do this, that cared enough. And those days are gone.
Yeah.
But I hope the truth will come out here, and that enough Republicans can keep enough pressure. Self-preservation is better than anyone covering a million politicians, is the ultimate motivator in politics.
Yeah.
And to the degree that they have to defend this,
usually they're behind them until they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all get to watch. Stu, great to see you as always. I always enjoy the conversation. I wish we did it every day, but that would drive you nuts. But it means a lot that you come on. And
I love hanging out. I love what you're doing. I watch it all the time. And keep it out there, man.
Thanks, man. We'll do. All right. Good to see you. Thank you so much, Stuart Stevens. Great Stuart Stevens, author of the book It Was All a Lie. And he has others too, folks. And, Stu is an important guest in this moment. And Trump and the Republicans, they go off on the never Trump Republicans. And I used to hear this in corporate media, you guys don't have enough Republicans on. You should have more Republicans on. I say I have Republicans on. They just happen to not like Donald Trump. And I have Republicans on all the time on this show. They just happen to not like Donald Trump. They happen to care about this country. They happen to care about the Constitution. They happen to care about our democracy. And it wasn't that long ago. Stu was talking about watching the Watergate tapes and as if you're looking at a different civilization. And that I think that is true. But it should also be pointed out that Barack Obama and John Boehner, for example, had a pretty darn good relationship. People don't realize that. We were told this after the fact. They would fight like hell in front of the cameras, but they were friends. They got along with one another. Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill, another famous relationship across partisan lines. Republicans and Democrats can coexist. And I know that sounds insane to hear those words coming out of my mouth. Modern day Republican Party going to take a hell of a lot of work for us to get back to that point. But when one party gets behind a wannabe dictator, a wannabe authoritarian who is morally bankrupt, who is now surfacing in emails in the most ungodly ways possible, this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call to anybody. Mayday, Mayday. SOS. Is there anybody in the Republican Party? Blink twice if you hear me. It is time to come home. It is time to come back to America. It is time to come back to the real world. It is time to leave Donald Trump's side. It is time to come back to America's side. And the question that you have to ask yourselves in this moment, at this critical time, is do you want to attach yourself to the Titanic? The Titanic was on TV. I turned it on for a few minutes and I watched, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, these poor people. Republicans right now have a choice. They don't have to board the Titanic. They don't have to figure out whether or not there are enough lifeboats. They don't have to figure out whether the water will be warm enough. They won't have to worry about any of that. They have time to not board the Titanic. Some of them, we all know who they are. They're going to get on that goddamn Titanic, even if they know it's going down. But one has to think there are enough of them. Goes back to what Stu was saying about self-preservation, who will at least think about it from their own standpoint and want to save their own ass. And do you really want to go down with this guy? Do you really want to go down with him? Because this ship sure as hell looks like it's going down. May not be right now, but when the email from 2011, I repeat, the email from 2011 says that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. Ghislaine Maxwell, I have been thinking about that. The White House tried. Donald Trump is going to try. There is no way to make this work for him. Go through the other emails. Go through the other documents. The birthday letter. And it goes on and on and on. And look at what they're doing today. Caroline Levin. Oh, no, this shows that he didn't do anything. And yet the White House is trying to talk Lauren Boebert into not going along with the discharge petition. At some point, it's as plain as the nose on your face. It's as plain as the Titanic sitting at the dock, the foghorn going off, the signal going to the masses that it's about to pull out to sea. And who's going to get on board? Because that ship sure as hell looks like it's going down. My thanks to Congressman Eric Swalwell. My thanks to Stuart Stevens. My thanks to all of you. A programming note. In 30 minutes from now, we're going to do another special edition of this program, but in coordination and in partnership with my friend Miles Taylor, who has started up a very important organization called Defiance. He has brought to bear for this effort some very important people, including acting legend Robert De Niro, who I spoke with, and we're going to play a little bit of that conversation. And Miles has some other terrific guests lined up. We have former Congressman Joe Walsh. We have former Congressman Dick Gephardt. Lots of others lined up to speak with us. That's in 30 minutes from now, 5 o'clock Eastern, on all of our channels, Substack, YouTube, etc. And so however you watch us, make sure you tune in for that. But in the meantime, thanks everybody for watching earlier this morning during our special live coverage with Congressman Robert Garcia, Katie Fang, and Ryan Lizza. In the meantime, still reporting from Washington. I'm going to go get a drink of water, pet Duke, and take a break. I'll see you in about 30 minutes from now. Still reporting from Washington. I'm Jim Acosta. See you soon.